Greetings Internet, DDA here, and welcome to a closeout of deck profile videos. I'm actually going to be out of town, so I haven't, this week, for the pre-release week of Jump to Lightspeed, so I haven't been able to push out the content that I originally had planned for the release of the new set. But instead, I'm going to kind of close out this set 3 meta by releasing a bunch of my set 3 decks that I had been working on towards the end of set 3. Well, actually, this deck that I'm bringing you today is my Luke ECL deck that I had been playing competitively this season. I went to 2 PQs and I had 2 4-3 finishes. So 2 4-3s, consistent, respectable. I was using early versions of my deck. Early versions of this, so it's actually a different list that I was running at the PQs. When I had losses in the PQ, I was actually losing to aggro decks, space aggro decks. I went too light in space. I had a pretty bad win rate against Django, and the heroic space aggro decks would always kind of take me over, like Quinlan. So I think this Luke ECL deck is not only tier 1 competitive, I definitely could have taken a PQ with it if I ran with this list, but hey, we learn over time. We learn, playing competitively, playing against really, really good players. We learn about our decks and what our weaknesses are. So we take that knowledge and we put it into the deck. So I wanted to get this deck profile out to you all. So let's get into it for this Luke ECL competitive build. So if you've been following my channel for a while, you know that I love Luke decks. I've been playing Luke Skywalker in various forms, for pretty much since the beginning of the game. I started with double blue, and in set 2 and late in set 1, I went to yellow. I tried Now There Are Two of Them combos with yellow Luke. Didn't really work out, so I switched to green, and green is definitely the strongest version of Luke Skywalker for many reasons that we're going to get into. But to start out here with this competitive Luke ECL deck, well, I guess first I want to talk about why ECL? Why ECL over the 30 HP? And that is a question of the meta. And I've had many discussions with a few of my local players, as well as some of the competitive players in SWU about what the meta is currently in set 3, and that meta is, of course, Han Solo. Han Solo stands at the top of the meta. So if your plan is to take a PQ or take a competitive event, you need to prepare to play against Han Solo. And so the question of whether to run the 30 HP green base over the 25 HP ECL, to me, came down to Aayla Secura. Just one of the greatest cards to answer the Han meta. Aayla comes in on the same turn that Han flips on 5, because of course Han decks will, they'll be on 5, they'll Han power, and then they'll be able to flip and deploy at that point. So of course Aayla takes out and one-shots Han Solo and survives. So you don't even need to activate her power for her to be a good answer to Han Solo. And that's pretty much the main reason why this deck was born, is that Aayla's a great answer to Han, and then Luke Skywalker in general offers many, many powerful plays against mid-range and control decks. I had such a good win rate against mid-range and control, and even in the Han Solo matches, the aggro ones, the double yellow, I never felt out of the game, even though I did lose to the one Han deck that I ended up playing at a PQ. But again, I think that was because I went so light in space that it ended up hurting me. Not this version, though. This version is well-rounded. So getting into it, one of the reasons why Luke Skywalker is so good in green decks is, of course, the powerful Alliance Dispatcher that we actually play 3 of in this deck. Alliance Dispatcher, so if you look at some Luke green lists online, you'll see sometimes they'll max out on Alliance Dispatcher and Maz Kanata. You'll see my list, I only go with 1 Maz and 3 Alliance Dispatcher. I guess I'll just talk about kind of this the 1 cost powerhouses that is Luke Skywalker, the one-cost plays. So, Luke Skywalker, much like Rey, really likes playing one-costed units on turn 1 because it allows you to use your power on that one-cost unit. So it allows you to give you a shield to your one-cost unit to start out the beginning of the game. So either Maz with a shield or Alliance Dispatcher with a shield. I played a lot with the ratios between these two units. Alliance Dispatcher is far superior for Luke Skywalker because not only does it give you the ability to play late game units earlier, like, dropping a Kanan turn 2 or dropping Luke Skywalker a turn early or all of those combinations that you can do, but also it allows you to play units on curve with a shield. So, for example, if I drop Alliance Dispatcher turn 1, I can drop a Village Protector turn 2, which I would normally be able to do, but I can then drop it with an extra shield because I played it for 2 with the Alliance Dispatcher. I have a resource left to give it that shield. So, I think that's one of the main reasons why Alliance Dispatcher is the greatest turn 1 play for Luke Skywalker, because Luke allows you to make heavy use of that extra hanging resource that you have. So there's never, even if you can't drop a huge bomb with a Dispatcher, you can always just play on curve with an extra shield. So the options that Luke gives you allows you to use Dispatcher in so many powerful different ways. He's at the top of my list. That's why he's played at 3. Maz Kanata, very strong unit. Very strong when played with U-Wing. Very strong when played turn 1 with a shield. But that's where it almost ends with her. Like, for example, Dispatcher, you could throw Dispatcher out mid-game to play late-game units early, and that's still really powerful. Whereas with Maz, if you're dropping her mid-game, she's kind of weak. And especially if you drop her late-game without U-Wing, she could be weak. With U-Wing, she's really strong, but without, it's pretty weak and slow. So that's why she's only at 1. When she lines up, she can take over the field. But there are several situations where she's just a weak play, so we only play her at 1. And the main reason why we kind of went a little lighter on the one-costed plays is because I needed more space. And, this deck, it originally went really light on space. I needed more space, especially to answer, like, the Lurking Tie plays and whatnot. Of course, Restored Arc 170, bread and butter unit, can drop it with a shield. I wanted to make sure I was playing enough early game units that I could put a shield on and make use of Luke Skywalker's power. Of course, this unit is great to answer those space-heavy aggro decks, or just run in space and with that restore, giving you a little breathing room. Of course, if you're playing green, you have to play the greatest turn 1 play, which is Battlefield Marine. Dropping this guy with a shield can be extremely powerful. He can answer most early game plays, and with a shield, you can do it for free. And then, of course, being that I was so used to running yellow Luke Skywalker and having all the tricks in the world, coming to green, you're very limited. Like, green is really good at field control, like with the ambushing and the powerful units. You're really good at kind of securing the field and the board state, but being able to kind of play tricks on your opponent's hand or events that your opponent plays, it's limiting in that regard. So the 3 regional governor has been key. It's been key against the now there are 2 of them decks to name now there are 2 of them, so they can't like overwhelm the board and make it so I can't really just answer any of their units. Turn 2 Zuckuss is crazy. So yeah, regional governor, great against now there are 2 of them decks. Great against Triple Dark Raid decks, Ruthless Raider you could call. Great against control decks, answer Power of the Dark Side, answer the Super Laser Blast late game. There are so many different things you can do with Regional Governor. It's just been very, very strong at 3 copies. Now going into the early game tricks and events, we have a single copy of Timely Intervention. Now, I've gone up and down on this. I've spent the longest at 2 on Timely in here. I wouldn't knock anyone for playing 2. I think 2 is solid. I wanted to play more units in the deck and more space, so I ended up dropping down to 1 Timely. I actually have 1 Timely in the sideboard for the heavier grinding matchups that you're going to be grinding late game. And you need that extra Timely. But Timely is so powerful in here, like I mentioned. We're maxing out on Aayla's. We have Sundari Peacekeeper. Echo-based Defender is actually quite amazing with Ambush sometimes and with Timely Intervention. So that comes in a lot. Of course, Obi-Wan's Aether Sprite is always a powerhouse with Timely Intervention. And then also, this deck is called Timely Luke Wins because the number of times that I have Timely Intervention, Luke Skywalker unit is countless. And it feels broken when you do that, to be honest with you. The first time that you Timely Intervention Luke Skywalker unit, it feels just completely broken. So originally I called this deck Timely Luke Wins as a joke, but it really is that powerful. The 1 Timely in here for the just I win the game sometimes. And then, you're not a Luke Skywalker lover or a Luke Skywalker player unless you're running Luke's lightsaber. I see Luke lists online. They're like, "Oh, General's Blade's better." No, it's not. No, because you win the game with Luke's lightsaber. And let me tell you the combo. And only Luke players know this. And I feel like once you know this combo, you're gonna see that Luke's lightsaber is the lightsaber for you. The combo is with Resupply. Now, you're going to want to play Resupply regardless, right? Resupply is a powerful card. The whole reason you're playing green is to overwhelm your opponent on the field with your powerful green units, and Resupply helps you do that. So you're going to want to play Resupply. There's always a question, can I Resupply against aggro? 9 times out of 10, you can't. But there is one thing you can do with Resupply that actually makes it a good play against every single deck, and why I often will still have 1 Resupply in against aggro decks, because on 5 resource, on the 4 turn, what you can do is you can Resupply into the Luke deploy on 5, going up to 6, and then you have, lo and behold, guess how many resources you have after you Resupply into the Luke deploy? You have 2 resources left. So you Resupply into the Luke deploy on 5, and then you have 2 resources left for a Luke's lightsaber. And let me tell you, bringing out your Luke leader, if you think bringing out your Luke leader a turn early is powerful, imagine bringing out a 7-8 shielded Luke leader a turn early. It's crazy. It's crazy strong. It's busted. And so you can't do that with General's Blade. I played the Hu Yang General's Blade combos in here. I found like I was putting too much into the deck that didn't synergize with Luke, because General's Blade doesn't synergize with Luke. Hu Yang can't be shielded. It felt counterintuitive to the deck, so I ended up dropping them out. I won't knock anyone for playing those combos. The combos are good, but I think this combo is the Luke Skywalker green combo. The Resupply into Luke's lightsaber, turn 4 on 5 resource. Incredibly powerful. Just really, really strong. So yeah, besides the ridiculous combo on turn 4 that you can do with Luke's lightsaber, it just helps you at all stages of the game. Late game especially, throwing it on your Luke unit. I think that if you're not, and I know this is a niche matchup, but in the Palpatine matchup, which is a meta deck, a popular deck, and I played against Palpatine in the PQ, Luke's lightsaber, if you don't run Luke's lightsaber, the Palpatine matchup is actually incredibly difficult, because they will steal your Luke unit, your Luke, the best unit in the game, arguably, and you can bait them with Luke's lightsaber. Often I do that, play Luke unit down, they will try to capture it. They will overextend themselves to damage it. And then you just play Luke's Lightsaber, and then now not only did you heal the unit so they can't capture it or take control of it, but also there's that shield that they have to jump through as well. I've won several games doing that against Palpatine. So there's just I would never run Luke without his lightsaber. I don't understand people who are running him without his lightsaber. I think it's ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous to do that. So going on into the mid-game units, one of the units that I added into the deck that I think is going to help in the aggro match, because like I said, the only decks that I really lost to in the PQs were aggro decks, and I wasn't running Sundari Peacekeeper. I think that was a problem. Of course, Sundari Peacekeeper, great with ECL, great with Timely, can come down, heal 2 for you, take out an early game unit. Play him with a shield, so it's even harder for your opponent to remove him. Sundari is a pretty difficult, pretty sticky unit, and with a shield, he becomes even more sticky. And is kind of that mid-game, early game healing that we need to kind of travel into the late game. So our Sentinels that we are running 2 copies of Village Protector and 3 copies of the Echo-based Defender. I've played around with these ratios with the Sentinels. I prefer Echo-based Defender over Village Protector for several reasons. Village Protector, great card, especially when you're dropping it with an extra shield. Very, very strong, but of course, there are a lot of cards in the meta that just take out Village Protector. What I was finding, I was struggling in the Anakin matchup, and Anakin's favorite play is, of course, to put Jedi Lightsaber on Anakin. And Village Protector was actually a liability in that matchup because he would do full damage to my base with the Jedi Lightsaber against the Village Protector. So I found preferring Echo-based Defender much more than Village Protector. It's a good card in many matchups, but they're just the hard counters, the perilous positions and things like that, the making openings. I found the counters were too much in the meta. So I'm at 2 and 3 right now. I've often actually ECL'd Echo-based Defender in very many situations. There are a few units that you can take out with Echo-based Defender and live. There are surprising numbers, so always watch out for that. You don't always have to save ECL for the Aaylas. You can do an early ECL with an Echo base and really swing things for you. But then, of course, as I was mentioning, our struggle with the aggro decks, we added the 3 Conquer Dawn Interceptors in here to combat the space aggro decks. Really been helping out. Just the most important thing when you're facing space aggro is that you are destroying their units. And Conquer Dawn Interceptor helps you do that. It helps you actually take out the units, so that way they can't continuously, once they answer your Sentinel, that way that they can't continuously push with their units. They have to trade their units into this. So continuing on with our mid-game units, we have 2 copies of Kanan in here. In the double yellow meta that we are definitely in, I've gone down on Kanan a little bit. Of course, one of the best plays with this deck is turn 1 Dispatcher into turn 2 Kanan. It is very strong to do that. Against the double yellow decks, they will kind of answer/punish you for doing that play. So I've gone down on it. Cunning is an easy answer to Kanan. So like I said, I don't always prioritize the Kanan. But, if you can drop him with a shield, he is very, very strong. He's a great ECL target as well to get that immediate value out of him. Very, very strong ECL target. So I still love him, still good, just not playing it at 3 because of the double yellow meta. And then, of course, running 2 Bright Hopes. You could play 3 of it. I would say 3 of it would be good in a Bosk Palp meta. Because I found, and the reason why I won't budge from 2 of these main, even though I have the 3 Conquered Dawns, is because of Bosk and Palp. Just being able to bounce your own units to either save it from the Palpatine steal or bounce your units for, after boss puts 2 bounties on one of your units. I did both of those at PQs, and they both of those plays won me games. Bright Hope was key in the Bosk matchup and the Palpatine matchup. So I wouldn't budge from 2 of these. It helps you in the space aggro decks against the space aggro, and it helps you against the, to bounce your own units in those tricky matchups. Yeah, really great card. So going into the mid-game non-units, the events and upgrades, we have 3 resupply. I talked about the combo with Luke's Lightsaber. Of course, another one of my favorite plays with resupply is to just simply resupply turn 2 into a 5-drop turn 3. Because the 5 drops in this deck are the strongest ambush targets that we have. We have Aayla, and then we have Obi-Wan's Aether Sprite. So both of them kind of dominate their own separate arenas with ambush. So being able to resupply turn 2 into either an Aayla or Obi-Wan's Aether Sprite ambush turn 3 is very powerful, and resupply allows you to do that. Just a strong card overall in many, many matchups. Another thing that I learned from PQs is the power of takedown. And specifically for this meta. For this meta, takedown is an S tier removal card. And that is because of Han Solo. Because takedown answers DJ, it answers Tech, it answers Falcon, it answers Red 3, all the space units. I found that games I would lose against the red aggro space decks were games that I just let Red 3 on for a round or 2. If you let Red 3 live, then you pretty much lose against those decks. If you don't find your space units, you better find a takedown to answer those space units. But yep, likewise, to Fel the Dragon's main, this has been key in this deck. This deck plays in the late game. It's fairly aggressive. It does try to go aggressive, but it does stall the opponent with its healing and the unit trades that it does with the shields. So you will play in the late game, and Fel the Dragon is such an important card in late game, playing in the late game. Also, it's great against the double yellow decks. The double yellow decks will often cunning +4. They think they're cool with their cunning +4. Punish them with their cunning +4 with that Fel the Dragon. So now moving on into the late game, our 5-drop units are our best ambush targets. I talked about it. I want to start out with Aayla. I talked about how important Aayla was. Of course, Luke Skywalker, again, the main shtick with Luke Skywalker is keeping your units around with those shields. That's how you know Ayla's going to be great in this deck. Ayla's going to be great because you're going to get that coordinate. You're going to stick your units with those shields. So you're going to be able to activate Coordinate and get that 6 damage for free. In this Han meta, Aayla is a premium, being able to answer Han on deploy every game, shoehorn your opponent with that Aayla Secura ambush. And likewise, we do run a single copy of Obi-Wan's Aether Sprite in the main. We have another Aether Sprite in the side for the heavy space decks. Of course, this card is at most use against Jango, which is why I put it in the sideboard. I do have 1 copy main. We want to see more so the Conquered Dawns and the Bright Hopes against the red aggro space decks. But the Aether Sprite is really good against Jango, really good against sealing out against the red aggro decks. The problem with the red aggro space decks is they usually switch to ground in the mid to late game with their Poes and Wreckers. So that's why the Aether Sprite is only at 1 for me, because the red aggro decks usually switch to ground. But the red-yellow decks do hang in space longer. So that's what the Aether Sprite is for against those red-yellow decks. But the other one is sideboard for those matchups. And then likewise, we are only at a single copy of General Riken. Very strong card, very strong with ECL and with Timely. However, I dropped him down to 1 because I found that by the time I get to 6 resource, I usually have already blown my ECL. It's very, very rare that I will hold my ECL until 6. I'm either using it on 5 or I'm using it early game with Sundari Peacekeeper or Echo Base Defender or Kanan. So it's either like Sundari, Echo Base, Kanan, Aayla, and then the Aether Sprite. By the time we jump through all those hoops to get to late game, we usually don't have ECL at that point. So that's why this guy's only played at 1. You could see him as a 4th copy of Aayla because he will come down and give himself experience for that 6 damage. So, of course, going into the late game, it would not be a Luke deck without 3 copies of Luke Skywalker. Again, this Luke was originally called Timely Luke Wins. There's a reason for that. This is the pretty much strongest unit in the game. I think we can all agree that the debate over whether Luke or Vader was better from set 1, we know the answer is Luke Skywalker now from our experience, and so 3 of these guys goes a long way. As far as U-Wing reinforcement goes, it may seem like a crime to only play 2 U-Wings in here, but I found that using U-Wing, I was really only trying to fish out my Luke unit. So really, U-Wing in here became, where's my Luke Skywalker? I'm not drawing my Luke Skywalker. Where's my Luke Skywalker? Where's my second Luke Skywalker? So that's what this card is in here. It has a little bit of anti-synergy with ECL, with Timely, with Alliance Dispatcher. And then likewise, we do run redemptions in here. So there's a little bit of, you want to say anti-synergy. Some of the cards in the deck don't work well together. They don't play together. And then closing out here with our endgame units, we run 2 redemptions. I have found that you can actually resolve redemption against aggro decks. You know, you're getting the heal from the Sundari, from Kanan. You're getting, you're slowing them down with Sentinels, with shields. And then you can kind of drop this redemption down to save you against the Wrecker ECL, to save you against the Poe ECL, mostly against the Wrecker ECL. You know, they're going to hit your base for 5 or 4 damage with the Wrecker ECL, so you're going to need to recover from that. So Redemption can really help you do that. So yeah, Redemption has been a great card. So that is it. That is my Luke Skywalker build. Again, I went 2-4-3s with this consistent deck. The 2-4-3s that I got were when I wasn't running Conquered Dawns main. I wasn't running Conquered Dawns, and I wasn't running Sundari Peacekeepers. So I think those, or Redemptions. So I think those 2 changes would have went a long way for me to have added success at the PQs. I think this deck is PQ worthy, tournament champion worthy. I didn't get it this season, but I'm going to keep pushing next set. And like I said, I'm going to be pushing out all the set 3 decks. So that way, moving into set 4, I have a good starting point for all these awesome decks that we're seeing in set 4. So if you like this video, please hit that like button. Please hit subscribe for all the best deck profile videos moving into set 4 Jump the Lightspeed. And as always, turn your dial to Random Number Gaming.